Now, personally, working on the go in China has been a challenge. VPN service is one of them, but also the differences in terms of talking to people here. Language-wise, the Chinese language is constantly evolving here. So even though in Singapore we learn Chinese, but our Chinese is really stuck in the 80s or 90s TVB era Chinese. The Chinese, the Mandarin they use here is more involved. They have new terms, new way of describing stuff, very much as how English in Singapore has evolved with new terms and new ways of using old terms as well. So coming here, speaking to some of the locals is a bit of a challenge, not because you can't speak Mandarin, but because some of the terms they use have to be explained to you. Interesting enough, I learned a lot about how people here go to market or do their marketing and stuff. And frankly speaking, it is interesting. Take cars for instance. There are a lot of local brands here which we have never been exported. They don't have to because the market here is so huge. They don't even need to worry about your international markets at all. They just keep local. They just learn from the foreign brands in terms of technology, and some of the cars here, even the lower end cars, have things like anti-vibration, anti-collision. There were actually, most of the vehicles here have advanced entertainment systems and mapping systems, and are all 4G enabled. This is becoming the norm rather than the exception here. Features you expect in high-end cars back in Singapore are common in the low-end cars here as well. So the domestic market is very strong here. Singaporean friendly, they like Singaporeans because we speak both English and Chinese, and they in a way lament a little bit about their inability to really speak English language. But in a way, it's because to succeed as a Chinese person in China, you actually have to go overseas. If you open a market in a more remote region and you're the first one there, you probably can corner the market easily. Like for example, Shangri-La, and the Meili Mountains, and one of the things we noticed, or me and my partner noticed, is that it's been commercialized significantly. Even though it's a religious place, it's a place of reflection and meditation, but obviously when there are tourists, there will be commercialization, there will be touts. But the situation here is actually quite friendly for most tourists compared to Thailand, compared to a lot of other countries like Vietnam, Indonesia and stuff. The touts here are not as aggressive and not as persistent. They'll ask you once, twice, and then if you're not interested, they just go on, moving on. I guess it's because a lot of the tourism here is still domestic, and they know that there's no point in pursuing the domestic tourists because they can ignore things around them very easily.